Neha, welcome to the Democratizing SEO podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Austin, for having me. Really excited.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time. I was recommended to speak with you. I think it was Jerry White who recommended you. After having a look at your LinkedIn profile, I thought, yes, you'll be a very interesting person to speak with. Today, we're going to talk about generative AI and the impact or possible impact on product pages. I know you work for a site that has a number of product pages, so I am very interested in your take on generative AI. As I like to do with all my SEO guests, I like to ask them how they ventured into the industry. So, with that said, how did you become an SEO professional?
Well, there's a saying that you don't choose SEO, SEO chooses you, right? So
Indeed.
that kind of yes, so that kind of fell right for me, or right time. So I've been a product manager for quite some time. Currently, I'm a technical product manager at Wayfair in North America, Wayfair US, and this came in 2021, and I was asked to be a product manager of the SEO team here. And since then, I've kind of expanded roles on search landscape, looking at SEO and also SEM opportunities here. So it kind of just came by. Previous to that, my product management experiences have been in e-commerce as well as campaign automation, a lot of finance and travel industry as well. So my short answer would be it just came to me. Yeah.
It found
So
you.
SEO chose me.
Also,
Yeah, it found.
would you say you have a preferred area or pillar of SEO?
Content is definitely of a great interest. And great timing on when we talk about generative AI, and the primary use case we can all think about is content, right? There's
Mm.
obviously a number of other use cases in SEO that are very interesting and worthy of testing out. But I would be partial towards content.
Mm. And I think on when I had a look at your LinkedIn, I gathered that you were a numbers person. I just want to confirm, would you say you're a numbers person?
Yes,
Data
always
person?
trying to make data. Yes, very data savvy. So I started my journey as a software engineer. And that's when I started looking into or working on really complex SQL queries to get some data out to the business stakeholders for their analysis. But what really intrigued me was how are they using this data to make decisions, and what is it that excites them on seeing the trends and everything. So I always started with data, and even today when I'm on the business side, I try to go after the data to know why this is happening or how this is happening. Just starting with basic data exploratory analysis is a good way to go about it. So yes, that will all come down to making data driven decisions and calling myself data savvy.
Yeah, data-led SEOs are very fascinating to me. In fact, anyone who's data-led is very interesting because I get the impression that you guys see the big story with numbers. Like you're able, I almost call it like the Matrix eyes. You can see the story when you have numbers together. You see if you this number here impacts this number, and if you change the lever of this number, it impacts everything else, and you sort of like see the bigger picture with numbers or
Yeah.
through numbers. I'm curious, is there a story of why you guys tend to see the big picture in this way, just out of curiosity?
Well, there's definitely so data storytelling is now that we are talking about, right? Like there's to tell a story, you need to kind of see what and why and how, right? So to answer those questions, you have to deep dive into the data to kind of address those things. When you are talking about the big picture, I think we sometimes go too deep, or we take a deep dive into this problem space and try to identify why it's happening, what's it's happening. But it's so important to kind of take zoom out lens, right? Like just do zoom out and take a step back to know the full picture of, okay, maybe this is happening because of XYZ other things that have affected or impacted the site. Or it is also because of the market or the bigger landscape, right? Is it also because the trends show me different, like the seasonality in there, right? Like the demand that could be driving this in this time of the month or this time of the year is probably changing, right? And with Google algo and the updates around the things, they keep shifting. So it's very important to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what could have driven that, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I think we kind of see like the whole scenario as a big picture.
Yeah, you guys have a wonderful mind, I have to say, data-led SEOs. Now, just before get into generative AI, I mentioned earlier that I came across you via Jerry White. Quick correction, I think it was actually via Petra. She recommended
Petra,
yes. So shout out to Petra. Now, when it
thank you
comes,
so much, Petra.
yes, indeed. When you came across Google's generative AI product as it is now, what were your initial thoughts?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again,
When
Austin?
you came across Google's generative AI, so either via their I/O presentation or a documentation, what were your initial thoughts around it as an SEO?
I think the first thought that came to my mind was, wait, what? And the next thing was, is this going to be a game changer? Is search changing? Right? Like, so that was the big thing. Like, where is search going to go from here? Right? So I think those were my initial thoughts. Like to really learn of, wait, where it's going to go from here? What are the changes? Right? Because it was a very high level. In the very beginning, we're all amateurs to kind of learn where is this going to go, right? So those were the first minds thinking that, okay, what next? Like we knew this was coming at some point, right? Like if you would kind of see the whole trend of technology going, we knew, and I feel I'm so lucky to witness this whole trend in tech going into this route. But yeah, I was quite surprised. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's a very interesting period in search in that we're going through a revolutionary period, I would say. And I would say it would be the biggest revolutionary period in search, probably in the history of search. When you think of the big changes, they're big, bold, broad changes. What do you think is influencing Google to make those changes now? No one knows, but if you were to gander on why Google are making these changes, what would you say to that?
I think the main motive behind, or this is just hypothesis, or this is just where I think Google could be going where with is, or let me take a step back, or like answer or start with this differently, right? Like voice searches. When they start becoming a boom with like the voice searches, text and image searches have always been there. Like, so we started to see that shift with searches, right? As Google being like the main centralized entity where everybody could come down to look for something. They became a game changer as a search engine, right? So all they are seeing now is how can I really get better at it, right? Really presenting everything to the customers in different possibilities at the brink of an eye, like just super fast, super engaging, and all the content that people wants to see and access from everywhere and anywhere is where I want to be. So wherever there's customer looking or even thinking or typing in something, I want to make sure like they have the right information at the right time at the right place. So it's kind of with that intent of again, like making sure the customer finds exactly what they are looking for.
As someone who's in the e-commerce space, PLPs, PDPs are valuable assets to you guys. How do you think generative AI will impact these sort of pages? Are you anticipating any major or minor changes to these types of pages?
I think I am definitely anticipating a lot of changes on product pages. There's so many features that touch on product pages that can be utilized through generative AI. You talk about the specifications, the schema tags, the images, the descriptions, everything that the customer wants to find in on that product or of that product is anything can be generated quickly and fairly, right? So I would say it's a period of testing and learning. How Google is going to deal with generative content, how the customer is going to react with a content that is generated with AI, right? How Google as a customer going to take and rank and analyze the output and quality of the output through generative content. I think it could be a big changes coming in onto how we think of product pages now.
And these changes, as you indicated, no one knows exactly what the changes will be, right? But in the industry, we know there will be some sort of changes. In terms of
Yes.
managing stakeholders and business leaders, what should SEOs be saying to stakeholders and business leaders right now to sort of like prep or prime them on these upcoming changes, even though we SEOs don't know exactly what they will be just yet?
Yeah. No, I think there are a couple of things to think about before even diving too deep into what the changes might be or what the changes might look like. I think with stakeholder interaction, it could be starting with just small tests, right? To learn and quickly adopt and kind of see where the industry is going and how it's actually going to impact their business. And here I'm just talking about e-commerce, right? Like so the kind of small tests and learn and small tests and learn to really see how Google is reacting to the generative content, whether it's images, whether it's descriptions, whether it's titles, right? So it's just going to be about that test and learn. This is how I see it. And the second part of it is where you have learned and tested enough and it's a win. You start to think about the scalability, the reliability, right? The kind of pipelines that you want to build in, cost, privacy, secure data, all kind of those things. As a product owner, I kind of see where do I want to see this product going? What is the vision of this product in 2 years from now? Am I going to only rely on generative content for so and so? What are the cost implications, right? How Google is ranking with these things. So that's the second part of it. But I think for the short term, it all comes down to let's learn, let's test, and kind of see where it goes from there.
Some SEO.
There's another,
Go ahead.
yeah, there's another thing. There's another thing that I wanted to add in here. So for e-commerce, at least from my side of the business as I speak, as we work on these generative content on product pages, right? We want to make sure that the customer that lands or sees that information is actually valuable and engaging. But at the same time, for us to be able to make that discoverable or accessible, we have to make sure that Google is respecting that content and actually showing up on SEO, right? On SERP. Google today does not discount or does not disregard any of the generative AI content, right? It's not saying that, hey, don't generate through AI. I will take it into consideration. It's not something that I will just completely discard versus that is actually created versus I think the main thing that comes down here, even from Google, is if the content is actually valuable for the customer. So think about the customer first. It has to sound so human-like It has to be relatable. It has to be something that the customer can take in. And only then you're going to have that big advantage of generating AI content, but essentially for the customer, not for Google. So it's the customer first and then Google. So that is also something that is where we should like make sure when we are interacting with the stakeholders, we are highlighting that it's also about the faster technology and getting everything out quickly, right? Automating a lot of these manual processes. But it's also about the customer. So making sure that whatever content you're generating, it's for the customer first.
When it comes to content for PLPs and PDPs, there was a time when SEOs were struggling to have text on these sort of pages, right? And it was almost as though text was seen as content within these pages. I'm curious, for PLPs, PDPs specifically, what would you consider content to be on such pages?
I think content, yes, you're absolutely right. Content was just seen as text, a piece of information that the customers can read through. But in my mind, content is everything. Content is all the details about the product or that SKU. Now, it could be through those text descriptions, it could be that image, it could be all the related links and the authority of that site or that page, right? It could be about those road signs, those titles, or those attributes regarding this SKU or all the information around it. So I think it's a combination of all those pieces together and not just necessarily text. It's also, when we talk about images, it's also about the quality of the images, the size, the image size and dimensions, right? So that is also a piece of content that I read. What is the quality of that image that you're consuming as content?
A lot of these sites, these types of pages have descriptions on them that are, sometimes they may not necessarily match the page. Let's think of red dresses, for example. You can have a look at PLPs, right, for red dresses on certain sites. And as an SEO, I'm sure you can tell, okay, this text content, this description, it's pretty much there just because SEOs at some point mandated it, right? Do you think with SGE and generative AI, we're going to see less importance on such, if you like, segments or areas on PLPs and PDPs?
I think with SGE, yes, that's definitely where I would say something that I still have to deep dive on and kind of see for ourselves as a test how things go. But yes, when you read those descriptions as text, because they had to be mandated to add more content, to add more relevance to that page, I see it as, now let's be very descriptive and very
Right.
how do I say, very relevant to what that SKU is all about, that red dresser is all about. It's not just dressers, right? Like, let's be very specific to that product. So the customer could go like, okay, this dresser had so and so dimensions. It is red color. Where is it? So kind of all those things will be extremely important, especially in the SGE world, as we get very descriptive about that SKU rather than the old traditional way of just having a relevance piece about dresses.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how description components on PLPs and PDPs evolve in the months and years to come, because a lot of the times those components, frankly, were just for search engines. Someone looking for red dresses wouldn't necessarily want to read about red dresses, right? It's more about the visuals or the experience of browsing through the variety of red dresses one has. So it'll be interesting to see how SEOs evolve. As you indicated, we're going to go through a phase where we carry out a number of tests to determine whether such a component is relevant anymore for search engines.
and what's working and what's not working. It's also
Yeah.
important to know what does not work for us or the industry or for Google or for the search engine rankings, right? And like you said, I also want to add to that point when we it's I think descriptions a heavy part of the content on the page that describes that product is going to heavily change, in the sense it's going to demand more details, more specifications about the SKU, versus rather than having a very generic content on it, right?
Right.
And
Got
who
you.
gets to the very specifics of what the customer is looking for in a dresser, and ensuring that content is being addressed, is where SG is going to like play the big piece, where this is what exactly the customer is looking for, right? Because
Hmm.
Google's job is to make sure like to present the best content, and to, for us as an industry, want to make sure that we present the right content that the customer looks for. To your point, it all comes down to a combination of the intent, right, and also the right content for that intent.
Yeah, that is an area that I'm going to keep a very close eye on, because e-commerce SEO is a leading industry within the SEO vertical. No, industry, yeah, of
Yeah.
leading industry within the SEO industry overall. Now, when we come to keywords and reporting, this is another area that I'm very fascinated with. Now, some SEOs, they view keywords as, keyword rankings and reporting as less important these days. And there is a theory, a set of thinking, if you like, that with AI, generative AI and SGE specifically, rankings and keyword reporting is going to be less important, especially when SGE is fully rolled out. What's your opinion on the value of SEOs reporting on keywords?
I think this is an area that I would like to see and learn and kind of read more, because these are very high level theories, right? On
Hmm.
that the importance of keyword could diminish eventually with SG. Yeah, but I feel it's also not in the short term that it's going away. It's
Right.
definitely a long term theory where you kind of start to think maybe Google does not need those keywords, right? They already have that whole database of the searches that they get, and all we need to provide them is like those better landing pages, the content that they have scrolled or they have um, discovered, to be able to make their judgment of mapping, right? So we probably just need to have the right landing pages. I want to take like a turn on from SEO to SEM, maybe paid search as well. There could be times, and with PMAX coming in, there could be times where we don't need keywords at all. All we need to give Google is your SKU data, right? Or all we need to give them is our product information or our landing pages, and they're going to make sure that they map the right landing pages to the right intent or the keyword or the search query, because the whole content. But for us to make sure that this content is right, ranking for the right set of keywords become extremely important. So in the short term, I don't see that keyword ranking going anywhere, because I still need to find like a way to optimize that page for 10 keywords or like 20 unique keywords is going to be crucial. Um, that's how I think about it, but it's definitely a short term view versus long term. And I still want to read up on that keyword research piece a little more.
Yeah, it will be fascinating if keywords are diminished. I'm getting my words mixed up. Diminished in the months and years to come. I'm even also interested in how stakeholders will view it, because a lot of business leaders, they think of SEO as keywords, links, and rankings, right? And
Yeah.
it seems as though AI, generative AI, SGE, the new Google, if you like, is
Yeah.
fundamentally going to change the way business leaders think of SEO. And it's
Yes.
taken them all these years to, if you like, grasp the have a good understanding of SEO, to then change it just like that. It seems as though it's going to be a big ask for non-SEOs, especially those in business leadership positions, to understand the new way that search works. What should business leaders, or SEOs, I should say, be saying to business leaders in order to prepare them for the potential drastic change around reporting?
Yeah. I think it's for everybody to stay on top of these new changes and advancements in search. I think it is all like getting up to speed with what new changes are coming, how are they going to drive our business, and what is the pivot that we need to take from A to B to make sure we are catching up to those changes as well. And this is where your small tests or learnings could also help in if you were to go after test A and test B and test C in the next 6 months, with respect to the new changes, right? Whether it's generative AI or the content or a new linking structure or your keyword optimization, like those things, you kind of get learnings as you go in parallel to it, right? Like, so here I see the graph of the technology and advancements going exponentially up with new drastic changes of how search works. And here is what with that is also our n number of tests in the pipeline that we want to quickly test and learn, is where I think we can stay close. We can bridge that gap to kind of not build anything for the short term, but think through the long term strategy, at least as a product owner, where we should be catching up. Like, okay, this is how the search is going to change. Is it really going to matter in the next 2 years? Should I really invest our resources on X if it's going to go away, if it's going to diminish in the next, say, 1 year or so, right? So
Right.
with that, I think it'll all be it'll be a question of how quick and adaptive the industry is, or the product itself is that you're building for. Yeah.
A lot of these changes, they're very much focused on impacting organic search. It seems as though paid search will be impacted, but I think most of the changes will be very much focused on disrupting organic search. From a budgeting point of view, do you see a world where those pesky PPCs, I love you guys, but do you see a world where they get more of the search budget over SEOs?
Oh, definitely, yes. I feel like that's always that's like a question that kind of majority of the people know the answer of already. So it's kind of it's kind of implied on that. But I'm also very curious, and this might be a little different from the question, but very curious to see what changes will actually be brought in just for SEO versus the paid search side of the things as well. Yes, there's budget and budget free, but like there's also a thing of if we talk about like the changes, how it's going to change the two industries, because both of them, and in one place at least, I see it in the umbrella of search. We want to make sure any customer that is searching for, say, a red couch, finds us through an ad, finds us through a PLA SKU, a text ad, and in the top 10 organic listings, right? It's kind of that goal for the customer to find us the right and land on that site. But how we make sure we target red couch in 3 different ways, it's going to be very interesting. And then I'm kind of, again, going to be like, let's start with SEO because there are too many changes happening. at the same time, right, with so many things, and kind of then take our turns on the other channels. But there are definitely going to be changes there as well. There's definitely going to be an impact, whether positive or negative, on that side of the search.
Okay, the $1 million question then. If all of these changes that are happening becomes more difficult for SEO to show or prove the ROI of the industry, of focusing on the channel, how would SEO then prove its value to business leaders?
Yeah.
It's the $1 million
Well,
question, right?
it's definitely $1 million question.
It's one that I'm
Well,
pondering and considering. Okay, this is going to be, I think, one of the biggest hurdles in the industry, especially because, over the years we've been moving away from it being very direct. I remember when you could show literally the value of keywords, when Google Analytics had keyword data on there, and you could show, okay, we had this keyword, it has this amount of demand, and we're position 1, and we got this much traffic. It was very direct. Now
very
it's
direct, straightforward.
it's a lot harder now. So how do you think we can go about navigating this mountain of a hurdle, in fact?
I think it comes down to not putting your eggs in one basket and trying to think through more creative and different ways to get to that customer. And it just could not be through a search on SEO, but it could be a voice search. It could be through another image search, right? It's where I feel you you have to start experimenting and start like seeing different, sending or making sure you have strong social signals, right, for brand awareness. I think that becomes the key where you want your customers to find you. But yeah, I don't think I have like a concrete answer to that $1 million question on how SEO is going to continue proving your value. Given so many changes, it would all come down to this is working for the industry in SEO versus this is not, and how we can continue to optimize what's working and like putting up our strengths and making them stronger and going right after it.
Yeah.
So it'll all be case by case, I would say.
Yeah, I'm relying on enterprise tools like search
Yeah.
metrics, bright edge, pi data metrics, etc., to lead the industry in this manner, because it's an area that's
Yeah.
going to impact them probably more directly than
Yeah.
SEOs within the industry. So
More directly than SEO. Yeah.
my
It's kind of the
go
sorry,
ahead.
it's kind of the data that they will have to find for the industries to be informed of like what they see, to your point, right?
Yeah.
Like Google Analytics report versus now getting all complicated. Where is the data coming from? How are we losing versus like that the competition is extremely high, and with the platform and the landscape changing it all, how does it like these tools like SEMrush or your search metrics, right? Like these ranking tools can really help find that direction and inform the businesses to take action against, is going to be definitely a big question.
Yeah, definitely. Now, TikTok. I've had my mind on TikTok, analyzing it and also just using it as a regular non-SEO consumer, but mainly analyzing it. And I've seen it change over the years, and over the quarters, I've seen major changes on there. And their For You page, I think it's a strong moat that they have within the social media world. what I'm noticing is that their search page is an area that they are focusing on. Now, mind you, these two pages are very simple in its forms, right? But very effective. No, not but, and very effective. Simple and effective. I'm seeing that they're venturing into the world of search. And users, because of this, users have a certain expectation. Do you reckon TikTok is a legit threat to Google search?
Well, I am the best person to ask this question. And the reason being, I have legitimately become an SEO TikTok user. So I
Ah,
only and only use TikTok for searches because they are just great at it. With the kind of recommendations and the finds, I have been very, very impressed with the recommendations overall and the listings that they provide. So whether it's a restaurant find, whether it's the trend on clothing, whether it's another piece of information that I'm looking of a recipe, it's just an information that I would like to utilize TikTok to get the best trending, highly viewed information. So I know I have the best information, you know. So lately I've become like a typical SEO user. So I'm not really spending time on TikTok on those small short videos or like keeping myself engaged on a screen or something. But on the other hand, I only use it if I want to find something, right? So I
wow.
believe very strongly that it's going to be a big threat for a search engine. And even as massive as Google, I wouldn't say a relative. So I wouldn't really compare. So this is where I get a little defensive in terms of you're not comparing apples to apples. Yes, this is becoming a great search engine for people to find information, and which is great. But Google has this massive user base, right? This massive data of the internet, so that's an advantage. So I don't think if it's going to be a direct threat, but it's definitely taking away a lot of the traffic from regular search engines to these apps or these platforms like TikTok, where people are coming to find information there first. So yeah, I'm that active user that you're talking to, Austin.
It's a fascinating set of events that we're having here because when you think of TikTok, it's a social media platform, of course, but social media and search have the same user base. They share the same audience. And I saw a report not so long ago that Gen Z and Gen Alpha prefer to spend their time on TikTok searching for information. Most likely because of what you just indicated. You find it as a better. In fact, is it a better set of results than Google, or you just prefer the way it's presented?
It's kind of it's quick and easy, and you know you're going to only find the top trending information or like the right information that you had been looking for. Like for some reason, whether it's a recipe, whether it's any kind of information around a location nearby, right? Like what are the recommendations? I think a lot of these searches happen because obviously for the main intent of information, finding information. So it's a lot of informational intent on TikTok, and the recommendations that they come out with is also very engaging. It's kind of those top, 5 results are enough for the user to keep being engaged and kind of going through it, which is why it all started with TikTok becoming a new search engine, like where people come to search for things. And you know how we have started even with Instagram trends on reels or small stories. So the timestamp, like the time span of our brains have really come down to just like 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 20 seconds at max for like the full engagement. And this is all what you need. You don't need a dump of all the text of 10 places where you can have to read or navigate through it, versus the Gen Z finding it easier to just go through 5 videos of 5 seconds each and really looking through it visually much more advanced. So why not? So it's kind of a lot of factors playing in on how this is also trending and booming. What is the kind of content? How is the content? What is the timestamp? Like, is it me having to spend, say, 7 minutes on the top 10 results to navigate through it, versus me having to spend like less than 5 minutes and finding the right video that tells me this is the best recipe that you should go after, and me then going back and bouncing back and trying it out for myself. So it's also because I'm used to only 5 minute short videos. I'm only used to watching, say, at max 10-minute video in a day or something, right? It's kind of where things are moving on how we send. And you probably would have seen big report on the screen time that everybody's kind of hooked onto in the last couple of years with the inception of Instagram, YouTube becoming smarter, and so I feel it's all about getting it quick and as soon as possible to the user, and
Speed is a important factor in search, and I think for the entirety of SEO, SEOs have thought of speed in terms of a website performing quickly, which is one element of speed. A secondary element of speed is users starting and completing their research quickly.
Exactly.
This is where TikTok has the upper hand on Google.
The session time.
Absolutely. When I think of the way how effective TikTok is as a search engine, it really makes Google look very, very old and outdated and off-putting. It's very off-putting, like looking at Google and seeing all these list of links, and I ask myself, so I have to go through all of this just to research what I want, whereas on TikTok it provides me with what I want. The intelligence on there provides me with the platform knows me well enough to provide me with what I am looking for succinctly, quickly. Whereas on Google, they seem to be struggling to do this. Now, if TikTok is providing e-commerce information quicker than Google, what happens with e-commerce SEO? Does it become platform dependent? Do you see TikTok becoming the default platform for certain areas of SEO, like e-commerce?
So I think I don't necessarily see that being as the default. It's definitely a plus one or an added advantage to have like strong signals, because even for Google, it's important that this domain has strong social signals. So I feel the default kind of still remains, at least in the short term, the search engines, because this is a place everybody today is familiar with for so many years. Like it's the main motive of coming down to a search. It's how we catch up to the behavior or the human behavior, the change in human behavior, to also adapt to their kind of platforms, and TikTok being or Instagram being one example. So I think so the default remains here, but it's kind of catching up onto how the human behavior is changing, and then being there and making sure you have all the placements on the right Instagram ads, Facebook or Meta, or as you call it, or like you want to make sure you have all the TikTok placements and everything. But it all kind of come down to the default, because that's where the brand awareness really started from initially. but it could be different, as you see with millennials and Gen Z and Gen AI is like going after social media first rather than the search,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you still have those placements tight in there, and you kind of solve for both. So think of it as like the giant umbrella of search where you have so many demographics, so many different kinds of people of different age, of different genders, of different habits, of different search history. So you want to make sure on how you target all of them, and make sure that the customers, all those types, find you in the right placements, kind of becomes more crucial than only kind of going through where the whole the main market is going, because I still feel every platform has a different kind of user base, right?
Right.
That there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be some data that will be telling you of how many people can actually go through the searches, convert better there, where you have better listings and better authority of tech SEO, and you kind of know that this is for this demographics A really work well versus demographics B really work well for Instagram, right? And you want to have like the right placements on TikTok, so you have those things there for demographic C. So that's how I think of this whole story as. Yeah.
Isn't SEO just the best? I mean, it just continues to expand.
Yeah.
Search is it continues to expand and get more comprehensive.
Yeah. It's very interesting, and it's a very exciting time to be in, right? Like with all the
Yep.
changes happening, you kind of are, you have to be on top of it. You have to see what's working in, right? And this is where I feel I'm truly lucky to be in that industry and witnessing so many changes, and as a product manager being able to test them out, see what's working, and also devising and informing the stakeholders of the long-term strategy. This
Hmm.
is where it's going, or this is where it's going to go. So how can we really be at the top of it?
Yeah. Lastly, Neha, if I were to ask you, what do you wish every business knew about SEO? What would you say?
Um, I think it all. So there are a lot of myths on SEO for so many things, right? Recently, I think I saw a case study where there was this company X taking down more than 70% of those pages, really deleting content to avoid duplication. What they saw was an increase in their traffic projections, right?
Hmm.
But the very basic foundation of SEO is like deleting content is probably not like the best answer, right? So I think what the industry, and this is what like the Search Engine Journal itself published as an article, that Google is it's not recommending deleting content. It could be a beneficial content for a set of users. It all comes down to how smartly, how creatively you use the intelligence to avoid duplication versus taking everything down, right? So
Hmm.
this is just like a small example, but I wish in tech SEO we had more people talking more about like the foundation, because if your foundation of SEO is clear, everything kind of starts from there. And with new learnings where everybody's kind of in the same boat, you learn from each other. But I wish like with these myths and with these like trials and errors, we didn't have to, navigate like that. So the stakeholders really learning the basics of it is really important. And there's tons of information out there that even Google is struggling to rank for you and get you the best article, right? Versus
Yep.
providing the wrong information of how it actually works. So making sure you find the right things, and you kind of have enough confidence in it and enough evidence, versus just going after another myth that you might have read in one or two ways. Okay, deleting content is like the right thing about it. um, so it's all coming down to like the very basics of how tech SEO works.
Well said, Neha. Well said. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you'd like to shout out or rave about?
Yeah, I would definitely give a big shout out to Petra, who introduced me to you for this podcast. I think I met her last year in a Social Love conference in London, which was extremely exciting. I got to make a ton of SEO friends in there. So really want to say that it was through that start that I started making or growing my network in the SEO industry. And so thanks to all of those folks and also Petra for really vouching for me and giving me this opportunity. And I would also like to thank you, Austine, like a big thank you for approaching and reaching out. This was a great experience. I definitely felt this was more conversational and fun and really learning on and talking more on the new concept of generative AI, new PDP changes, and new stuff, because I'm also working on something similar here. So it is definitely an exciting time, I would say.
Thank you. And shout out to Petra, definitely. Where can people find you online?
I would be very active on LinkedIn, to be honest, not as much on Twitter, which is also not something I'm proud of. But I am super active on LinkedIn.
Okay, I'll have that your LinkedIn in the description so people can get in touch with you. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Neha. It's been
Thank you
fascinating
so much.
speaking with you. And I love that you're a TikTok SEO person. Perhaps we can venture into that in the coming months when we know more about TikTok and Google's generative AI.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Austine, for your time today. It was lovely. Thank you.
Pleasure. Have a brilliant day. We'll catch up again another time.
You too. Bye.
Cheers.